Before I begin, I would really like to congratulate all the organizers and the supporters of this great movement and this forum for the promotion of homeopathy across the world. 184 days, that's a tremendous achievement. It shows real conviction, consistency. And something that I really love about this forum, I've joined a few times, is that it's building connections internationally across the world, uniting people around the same vision and philosophy, which is what we need at this time. People to come together to support each other and move these type of movements forward. Also, I'd like to just quickly thank Shalu and Firaz for helping organize this and for inviting. I'm really humbled to be in the company of such distinguished doctors with many years of experience in the field. And so I humbly share today some of the work which we're doing, which in our own way is looking to bring people to a better place of stability during these challenges. The world is not as it once was. We have the actual virus itself, coronavirus, which is affecting people directly, but the economic fallout, as we were saying, the fear, the panic, the mental instability of really causing negative impacts for people's well-being. And so what we're doing here is really looking to address this by giving people awareness, which helps them just unrelease those pressure valves of their minds where they might be caught with negative thinking so that they can be returned to stability and also support their communities. So thank you again. I'll start the presentation. Okay. So invest in awareness, the organization and initiative which we found. So Christopher Greenwood, that's my name. And just to give you a little bit more background about invest in awareness, just to give more of a context, we're looking at the situation of business corporates holistically, really, because also with people being in a bad situation, the world is in a bad situation. So we're wanting to bring ethical businesses which utilize rather than exploit the earth. And then from that as well, we're building supremely productive teams once they're stable, so that if the business is developing contribution to society, we really make them effective. And then the thing which we'll talk about today, wellness reinvented. I have a background in yoga, and also that includes pranayama. And so many of the wellness programs in the world of business, where people are really experiencing negative effects of stress, adapting to home working life when they've got families at home as well. It's a real shock for people. Many of the usual patterns and places where they go to have been cut off. And so there's an increasing demand. We're in constant dialogue with companies that are looking for programs to support their employees because people are really struggling. What normally happens is that they'll give a yoga class, a dance class, or some breathing class as an option. But what we've found from our own experience is that that's not enough at this time. People need something more. And so what we're bringing now is something which is based on the teachings of Mahanji. And I'm Mahanji's secretary as well. So we've worked really closely together with the team to bring something robust, which helps people stabilize around one single principle and teaching. And that's simply be you. Be yourself. That's all we need to be in our life. Everybody's unique. Everyone has their skills, their qualifications, their gifts. But if we really understand and accept ourselves, we become more natural. And then when we're in that state, we're operating from a different place altogether. So investing in awareness, this is what we're looking to do. So when we talk about awareness, this really is shifting people's frames in their mind to a new orientation, maybe a new way of thinking. Some of this, I'm sure, is probably common sense for a lot of you in the field of medicine, but for many of the public, it's not. So I would just take this in as I go through, just as maybe a reminder, a prompt. And how I'll go through the presentation is give a flavor of how we introduce this topic to people so you can experience it for yourself. Many of the concepts underneath the surface of this presentation have its roots in deep yoga philosophy. So it might be presented in what's a seemingly simple way, but actually the message, the teaching is it comes from a really reputable source. So we'll begin today with one fundamental awareness, and I hope this doesn't come as a surprise to people. So that is, we are born. One day we were born. We were a small baby. We entered this world, this place called Earth, into our family. And at some point in time, we will leave. We will die. So this is a truth which we try and bring to people as a base awareness. Then what's in between? Well, this is something which people call life. Between the time from when we're born and to the time we will leave here, it's what we call life. And if you break that down, actually, and say we have 80 years of a life, and that would equate to maybe 30,000 days. Now, you'd probably have to take off, I don't know, 20 years for sort of starting life, education, growing up, learning, maybe take off 20 years at the end for when we come to our time of retirement and settling. So the period of time when we have to really experience the world is not a lot. So what we try to show through this simple example is that the quality of life is important. And that quality actually only comes from our day-to-day experience, because we know that the past is gone. We know the present is, the future is still to come. What we're experiencing now, as we're all joined together, you know, how we're feeling, our mental state, our emotions, what we're thinking, this is our experience as it's happening in life. And that's where we should try and invest the quality in it, because happiness won't come tomorrow. It can only come now, today. Then if we said that's life, so it's the period in between. How we then, again, build some fundamental base awareness is that our life's worth can be built on our experiences in life. Because that's the only thing we can really take with us. We come with nothing, we'll also leave with nothing, but our experience is what lasts. And then even though the experiences, if you took an example of maybe eating your favorite food, imagine the food is sitting on the table ready to be eaten. On the table, the food has no taste itself, but you can see it and you can smell it, but you can't taste it. Then after eating, it has no taste. It's gone. The food's gone through the mouth and it's inside the body. It's working its way through the system and it'll come out as whatever it needs to inside the body, and also excretion. So we actually only have a momentary experience with that food, and that's when it's touched the taste buds. And if you think of your mental activity for all that experience of time just to eat food, the thinking about it, the preparing it, the placing it, actually the activity of eating it, we're only living for that momentary experience. And then most of the time, actually, we're not present with that experience. We might be watching a TV, we might be having a conversation, we might be doing something else. So like this, we have our experiences in life, but are we really there with them? This is an important piece of awareness that we bring, because we find that much of life's unfulfillment is because we're not with our experiences as they happen. And then the opposite as well, not opposite, but combined with this, what's our life's worth? That's our expression into this world. We are unique, and we have a place in the world. We have a relevance. Nobody is like us. Each of our eye retinas is different. Our thumbprint's different. So when we realize that and understand it, we have a unique expression, and we have a platform, the earth, to give this into the world. And that's what the highest potential we could actually live, to give our uniqueness back to the world. 7.5 billion people in the world. And how many of them do we know? Probably not many. Also, of all the people who we're with today, maybe in the next, maybe 50, 100 years, none of us will be here. The only people who generally are remembered are the stars, and that's because they lived their uniqueness. They were just authentically themselves. So this is some basis which we share. Now, if we say that life is about experience, what can stop us? What's the obstacles from really experiencing life? These can be ownerships, which are normally connected to me and mine. You know, this is my house, this is my car, this is my wife, this is my husband, this is my, all the things which are about me and mine can actually inhibit the natural flow of life and experiences coming. The same as our prejudices. Someone may give us a really good bit of information. They may say, oh, how about you take part in this? Or maybe you'd like to come to some small examples, but a dance class or something like that. If you've got a prejudice that, for example, well, only girls can dance, guys can't dance, it's a denial really of an experience. So like this, our mind, our life, we pick up these things and they might not necessarily be ours. They could be from society, they could be from friends, family. And expectations, this is a big one. The higher the expectation, always the higher the potential for disappointment. Not even more so now with the coronavirus situation, COVID, because what people expected their life to be is being completely turned and shifted on its head. So there needs to be a readjustment. If people are still holding on to their old expectations, then they're denying the experience of today. The same with fears, fear of what will happen. Will I contract the virus? Will my family? Will all these things take us away from a situation? Some may be valid, but others we can't control. Judgments of other people, situations, places, and then acquired morality. This is quite an interesting one because based on society, we're taught to behave in a certain way, do certain things, live a certain way, and our family might also put that in place. So these can stop us living our own experience. Then stopping our expression, typical ones, being scared of failing, being scared of society, which is a common one. But actually, when we look at society, they can only do one or two things, either accept us or reject us. That's it. That's all they can do. And not everybody will accept us. Not everybody will reject us. But if we, as beings living our own unique life, deny ourselves that because of a fear of society, we're also then denying who we are in a way. Complexes, I can't do certain things, I'm not that way. And then generally lack of self-esteem. So some obstacles here of experiences and expressions. So then this is something which we always propose to people in our programs, and something that's proved to be really quite effective, because one of the major obstacles for living a full and contented life is that we lack acceptance of ourselves. That's many times I hear conversations around this, and in my own experience of life as well, living well, starting a career fairly early and rising up through the ranks, I was very wary of my position. And I always put on a front. I always pretended to be somebody else. I would always look to imitate someone else rather than living authentically. And this meant I was living a lie in a way through early work career. So generally what can happen in life is we pretend to be something rather than being what we are. We compete when if we really understand that we're all unique, there's no need to compete with anybody because everybody has their place, everyone has their relevance. We compare with people. And what happens when we compare with someone? Essentially, we're subconsciously saying, we're not that. We're not good enough, which has a negative impact on us. It hits our self-esteem and can cause more complexes. When really we can't compare because we have our strengths and weaknesses as do others. We judge people. Judge ourselves, and sometimes people try to prove in life, out of insecurity, they want to prove a point that we're good enough, that we deserve someone's attention or someone's affection. So all of this takes us away from ourselves, which can then lead to some of the mental imbalances which we can see about people having fears, insecurities, complexes, worries, stress, anxieties. So we're really trying to show people that we're fine as we are. You are unique. And we start from there. We may not be perfect, but at least first step is accepting ourselves. And we find that this actually, as I mentioned before, releases some pressure valves for people in their mind. It gives them some breathing space and some calm. So this is then, if we need to accept ourselves, do we really understand ourselves? This is where we come to next. And this is where we start to really bring in the teachings from yoga has this as well. So yoga understands this very well. So that we, in our life, do we need to understand ourselves? Do we need to know ourselves? Is a good question as well to think of first. What we are inherently expressing into the world, our inclinations, our desires, our patterns, our tendencies, our phobias, our fears, these are all reflected in our character, and they're reflected in how we interact with the world too. So if we start to understand ourselves, we can become aware of many of the patterns which exist in our life, which may be positive for us or may be negative. For example, if people are quick to anger and get into arguments, and this then causes more complications for them, recognizing that that's a pattern and that exists within someone is a good thing to know, because only then can you start to look at it and address it. And also, what we found as well, some people, me in my early days as well, spent a lot of time trying to run away from myself. You'd rather be somebody else. Maybe you're not happy with yourself. Maybe we don't like our nose, we don't like our ears, maybe our eyes are too small and belly's too big. Always we're trying to get away from ourselves. But the fact is, we are the only people who we can be with. And if we miss ourselves, we miss a lifetime. Then we come to sort of share how let's just come back up here. How we then also explain to people, so they can then be more aware once they've got an awareness. Okay, I am unique. Maybe I had some of these patterns which are going around. How then do I understand this more, or how can I change, or I can't do anything? Maybe they have some limiting beliefs. So this is where we say that the tallest wall in our life is our closed mind, really. It all starts and ends with the mind in these times, we found. Sometimes we ask things like, why is this not happening in my life? Why can't I do this? Why am I not being successful? Why don't they like me? And the real reason is that the mind is not allowing it. It's not permitting it. It's already created a frame. It's already created a walking space that this is who we are. This is where we belong. This is what we do. This is where I go. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I think about this person. This is what I think about that culture and that country. We're so used to it. It's become a pattern. And day after day, we're living it over and over again. You could maybe take the past 15 years of your life and looked at it, and you could probably observe similar situations and events happening in life. And many people go through life like this, unconsciously at the mercy of their patterns and what their minds created. So to give an example of this, I wanted to share a story. I think there's time to do this, which you may have heard before. So if you have heard it, apologies for sharing it again, but it could be a good reminder. I heard this in India, actually. I think it was Mahanji who shared this. And it's a story about an elephant and an elephant tamer, and the dynamic between them. So the elephant is one of the biggest mammals in the world, land walking. It's huge compared to the size of an elephant tamer. And what they do, the elephant tamers, is they dig a pit, they attract the elephant, they capture the elephant, and then they begin their training process, which is essentially breaking the will of the elephant, its nature. And what they do is they take a chain and they tie it around one of the legs. And so day after day, the elephant will be there. Obviously, it's trying to escape because it's a wild elephant and it's being caught. So the chain is tied around its leg. It's connected to maybe a post or a tree, and it's trying to run away. So each time it tries to run, slowly but slowly, the chain is eating away at the elephant's leg, slowly but slowly. And then the trainer makes it worse. He'll make sure that the wounds don't heal. So he'll keep poking them. And so after more days and more days, there's incredible pain for the elephant, until it comes to a point where the elephant doesn't want to move anymore because it knows of the pain that's going to come. It's at that time then that the elephant trainer takes off the chain and ties a rope or a thread and walks with the elephant. So at that time, even though the elephant was wild before, it still remembers the pain that it existed before. And so that thread and that rope is just a small reminder of the potential pain that can happen if it tries to run away. And then like that, it becomes completely tamed. Even though it's huge and much, much bigger than this tiny trainer, it's then stuck, it's limited itself with the belief that that pain's going to come again. So I share that as another way of giving that dynamic of the mind of what it's doing for us. It's creating that narrow walking space with all its limiting beliefs and everything else that comes with it. Okay. This now is how I'd like to explain the process of our life, how we live day in and day out. And we call this the cycle of illusion. So this has its roots back to some of the yoga text. In the middle, I'll just draw your attention to mind matter. So how we classify this is the mind being made up of three elements. So the mind being a processor, essentially. This is how we classify it. So the mind being the seat of emotions. So this is where we have all our angers, maybe our jealousy, happiness, sadness, sorrow. So all the emotions are processed by that mind bit. Then we have something which is slightly more refined aspect of the mind. That's the intellect. And this has the power to analyze. This has the refinement. So it can understand in life slightly deeper. So with the intellect, you can understand situations. This is what scientists do, doctors do, explore and discover things which are already there, but using the intellect as a medium to go inside, dig deeper, and find the secrets. So intellect has that analytical power. And the advantage is that it's not prone to emotions. So even if emotions come, intellect's not worried. It's more interested in information because it processes information, and the intellect loves to process that. So it eats lots of information, the intellect. So feelings, gossip, judgment, all things like that, the mind likes, but the intellect is more about information. And then we have ego, which is the skeleton of our personality. So this is where we have all our identifications, me, mine, ownerships, possessions, and positions. So what this diagram shows is that inside us, we have stored data. These will be from our experiences. These would be the yoga terminology of vasanas, our dispositions, and our samskaras. So essentially what they form is our desires, or the seeds of, what can I say? Seeds of desires which sprouts, which manifest through the mind, which are then projected out into the drama of life. Then what comes back, depending on the actual experience, is taken in through the senses and again processed by the mind. So we either like it or we dislike it. So we either accept it or reject it. And what comes from that is either fulfillment or dissatisfaction. So like this, our life is played out this way. What's inside, whether we have anger, whether we have hatred, whether we have love, whether we have kindness or joy, we express this out through our mind matter onto the world. And then what comes back is generally a corresponding experience. For example, if I took two men that were maybe sat in a bar talking, a small example, one of them might have a real desire and disposition for alcohol. He loves to drink. So that person already has that stored within inside them, that memory that they like that drink, they want something. So when the mind is prompted by seeing that, that's projected back out into the canvas of life, and the actions that take place for that experience to happen. They'll have a drink. Whereas someone who doesn't have that inside them, it's not projected out. There's no interest for that to take place. So like this, we explain our mind is constantly projecting and receiving, projecting, receiving, projecting, receiving. And like that, our mind, our patterns, our frames are just sharing out and bringing back what's inside and what we're expecting to receive. Breaking the mind down a little bit more, how we explain this for people, is we have within the mind itself, this is where we can have things like emotions, addictions, impatience, moral standards, restlessness, distractions, romance. We consider all these things disturbances or fluctuations in the mind, varying intensities depending on the input and the. Within the mind as well, you have things like guilt, sadness, anger, habits, addictions, romance again. So small things of awareness we bring in through examples and stories is take guilt as an example. Sometimes people live a life with tremendous guilt for everything they've done in the past. But really, there's nothing much that can be done. A situation would have occurred in somebody's life where, at the time, with the best of their resources, the best of their capacities, they would have made a decision, they would have taken an action, and it would have caused a result. That can't be changed. But by carrying it around as a weight, as a baggage, it does nothing. It just incapacitates people even more. They become a hangover of the past. So whilst we're not counselors as such, because some people will probably have much more uh, detailed, maybe traumas or problems, we're addressing people who are at the level where generally that they're okay, but they've been brought into a state of anxiety and stress or worked up just by external circumstances. We also have within the mind, this looks at after contentment, joy, disturbances, satisfactions, expectations, loneliness. And there's a difference there, loneliness and aloneness. Aloneness being you're content with yourself, loneliness being that need to be with someone. Contentment, I'll just come to. I mean, there's a happy looking dog there, fairly content. Something which we're experiencing from people and feedback during this time is actually most of people's contentment in the modern time is normally attributed to people, places, situations. So people are contented if they get to go on their annual holiday, they get to eat at a restaurant, they get to watch their favorite movie, they get to go to their favorite bar. This is very, it's always a contentment that's connected to something outside of us. What has happened now with COVID coming in, many of the opportunities for people to experience those things, which would have once given them this momentary contentment, have gone. With that happening, it creates a disturbance in the mind because it's almost like that's a pattern or not so much an addiction, but something which is being completely challenged. And this disturbance can be uncomfortable. So that can then grow into more uncertainty, more stress, more anxiety. So we try to reframe it to show that a lasting contentment really is to be is to be happy with what we have. So a small awareness, we'd be thankful for the small things that we already have. So food, clothing, shelter, a warm house, we have a family. So bringing back people back to what is available to them, what they have in abundance. So then the contentment becomes something which also settles inside. And over the course of the program, this what we're trying to squeeze in here is like 10 2-hour sessions worth of content, just to give an idea. But the idea is that we're slowly bringing people to a deeper sense of inner contentment, where no matter what's happening outside in the world, you are fine, you are stable. Something good happens, no problem. Something bad happens, no problem. You're detached, you're a witness, and you're always at a permanently content space. I'll quickly touch on intellect. This is the part of the mind which processes information, data, has its memories, analysis, ideas. We have our discriminations, prejudices, theories, and concepts as well. So again, as I mentioned before, the mind has really set our walking space for life. It's given us our boundaries. It said that this is who we are, this is my pattern. We repeat it day after day, we reinforce it. But really, there's more opportunity if we go beyond that. And the intellect's the aspect which keeps our concepts, prejudices, and any discriminations. We have our ego. This is where we have our insecurities associated with identity, me and mine, positions. We want to control, capture, conquer. We have relations which can be born out of status and identity rather than a genuine connection. We're attached to possessions, our ownerships, relationships in particular can be a big one, a big cause of tension for people in the mind. Why is my wife not this way? Why are they always doing this? She should do as I say. He should do as I say. All these things are connected with ego and can lead to big disappointments too. Positions and rewards. Okay. This is this is a type of diagram which I wanted to share with you quickly, because I think that Dr. Shadi said earlier today that we look at things holistically, really, as totality. So we have some understanding of all these elements of bodies. If you looked at yoga sutras, they'd have a different way of showing this, but just for our sake of illustration, for the type of audience that we're speaking with, we explain it this way. We have the physical body, we have the mind matter as a body, we have a spirit, and we have a soul. What we're trying to show with this diagram is that our physical is very much the small aspect of our total body, actually. Our physical bodies, whilst we actually don't have too much of a connection with it in modern times, is not so much of our experience. So, for example, our taste, our touch, everything like this, our sight, that all happens. When we're hungry, we'll eat. If we need to drink, we'll drink. If we need to go to the toilet, we'll go to the toilet. But the body itself pretty much just works for us. We have no control over what's happening within our digestive system, or our lungs are breathing, our heart's beating. All that's happening. But when we come to the mind matter, if we look at our life and assess the amount of thoughts which are running around in our mind, the types of activities that we're experiencing, most of this we can consider to be within the mind itself. Our relationships, our sadnesses, divisions, sufferings, love, judgments, prejudices. So we're showing that if we can really bring our awareness to understand these things with it at the mind level, we have a good opportunity to reduce their impact. And then just to quickly touch on spirit and soul. Spirit we could equate to consciousness. So we have our waking state, which we are now, we're present now, where we're interacting with an outside world, having our experiences. We also have a dream state where internally we're processing what we've captured. Generally, that comes from our internal stored data. And then a deep sleep state where we don't know who we are. Our identification is completely gone. And then we bring the idea that there's something which is energizing this, which for sake of discussion, we'll call soul. So like this, we try to give people an awareness of their makeup. Just a reminder again, because we touched on mind, intellect, and ego in a bit more detail. So we're bringing the idea of what we have inside us, what's stored within us, is really only what we're projecting and experiencing back in life. So what is latent, whether this is our inclinations, our tendencies, what we like to do, where we like to go, what we like to be, our character traits, this is what goes out into the world and what comes back. And then we're either accepting it or rejecting it. So when we understand this, we can begin to then look at ourselves a little bit more objectively to say, okay, this is how the show is running. This is what's going on. Now I can see that these are my patterns. I can see that this is happening time and time again. We can then bring in that detachment from the situation, which is that just stepping up that level of awareness to bring clarity to people's lives, to say, okay, this is what's going on. So then coming the other way, I wanted to bring this mainly for this presentation here with this forum, bringing all that together. So that's the basic awareness. How can then people use what we've shared as a way to start to help them with certain situations in life? So I'll give some of those examples, the common ones which have come up through our programs. People longing for better days gone by. So, when I was younger, it used to be much better than this. Life was easier. A few years ago, before COVID, I could go and do all the things which I wanted to, and now that I can't. So people are bringing in their minds, through their patterns, through their memories, wanting to be reliving those experiences, which are once very familiar for them, once very happy, maybe memories. And now there's a comparison, there's a judgment that life is not so good anymore because those experiences still can't be fulfilled. The fact is that that's gone. We only have today, and today is a new day, a new experience, new situation. So slowly sharing that with people. Now we work with what we have. We start from where we are. And there's many things which we can be happy for today. Like this, we start to release the pressure of these types of thoughts which people carry. Similarly, carrying baggage of the past. This can, throughout life, we've had many experiences, some more pleasant than others. And mainly where we don't have a pleasant experience, something to do with some emotional trauma perhaps, or emotional situations, they can be really serious and they can stay with us for a long time, mainly to do around with relationships. This can happen. So if something bad happens and then now that's being carried through the whole lifetime and not being able to let go of it, being as a weight. So what we're doing through talking, through discussion, sharing that, forgiving and forgetting. No longer do you need to keep that with you. Why carry it when that time's gone? So trying to make sure people aren't just a hangover of their past. A common one now as well, worrying about a future which is out of our control. So again, sharing what we experience now is something we could never have expected. And it's not through anybody's individual action that we have this COVID situation. And now we're connecting in this way, and our movements are restricted, and economies facing trouble, and tensions are rising. We didn't know that this could happen. So there's some things then which are in our control and out of our control. So if you took COVID, for example, as well, what's in our control is following the procedures, keeping safe distance. If you're following the protocol of wearing masks and things like this, listening to the health advice, or seeking own independent advice, like what you're promoting now, we can do things which are within our control, but some things are outside our control. So having that awareness also helps people reduce a bit of anxiety. High expectations, especially in relationships. So something which the situation with COVID has brought together for people is that people are spending a lot more time with each other at home as people are working from home. And sometimes in relationships, people can have expectations on the other. So I'll give a hypothetical situation. Someone has decided in their mind that their partner should behave a certain way. They should eat a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, live a certain way. All these conditionings, all these building up of a frame for that person to live in. And then what happens is that we put all that expectation on that person's head and expect them to live when really they just sink. We burden them with our own expectations. And then what can happen? People then try and chop that person up to make them fit the frame, rather than accepting people will be as they are. So as we mentioned earlier in the slides, everybody's unique. Everyone has their own tendencies, their own patterns, their own inclinations, their own likes, their own dislikes. So by bringing that understanding, it can ease some of those high expectations which might be causing unnecessary tensions in certain relationships. Competing and comparing. When we're competing with other people, when we're comparing with others as well, it really takes an effect on our self-esteem. This person's more successful than me. They seem to be coping more well than I am. All these types of conversations do nothing for us. It just takes away our energy and attention, and actually at one level is saying I'm either not good enough or I'm not good. And something as well which we bring some awareness to is wrong associations. This can affect people too, because in life there'll be many people who we encounter. Some will be good for us, some won't be good for us. And to give you an example, where we've classified two different types of people, just to help people give an awareness that these people exist, and so maybe they can adjust lifestyle and interactions to help. There's people in life who we can consider as black holes. So we could be giving everything to these people, and often we want to please them. Often we want to be associated with them. Often we really like them. But no matter how much we give, we can give everything we have, love, time, everything. Nothing ever comes back. So we feel completely drained by the end of them. And then on the opposite side, you have people who are like suns, ever bright, ever shining, ever ready to give, ever joyful. So understanding that these two different types of people, and then there's also other categories as well, which we go into, but these are the most, broad levels, helps people position themselves better in life so that already they're beginning to maneuver into a track where they're becoming more aware of what's good for them, what's not good for them, what thoughts are good for them, what thoughts are not good for them, what expectations they've got which might be causing themselves pain, where they've been competing with others, which was completely unnecessary, and the effect of that as well, the baggage they've carried, the wishing, the desire for something that's already gone. Putting all this together, people start to become more, I keep saying aware, but that's what it is, aware of the nature at this point in time, the reality of the situation now as it is, and also who they are. So to start closing now, summing all that up, what we consider awareness to be. This is what we want to bring to people. To bring people to a place of center, where they're being centered in life. No way can we have a smooth ride in life. It's just not possible. There'll always be ups, there'll always be downs, there'll always be storms. But if we can always remain in a place as close as we can to our center through increased awareness, then what happens is we begin to be able to respond more than we react to life. And that in itself brings in flexibility. We start to practice acceptance. And when we respond rather than react, we don't create future problems for ourselves. Say we got into a blazing argument, we called someone so many names, we abused them, we might have even acted violently or something like this. That has an impact, which again comes back within our life to cause more issues. So this is where we're looking to bring awareness, to bring people to center so that they can respond, they can be better placed, be stable, and handle the changing situations of life. So gaining clarity, accepting themselves and others, having focus, less baggage, feeling more light, more energy, better performance. Something which then I'll end for today is that the world is changing. I don't think we've seen the end of COVID, and I don't think we've seen the end of the situations which are going to come as a result of it. Economic strain is already beginning to show. As the vaccine rolls out, there's unpredictability about its results. If something, touch wood, not to foresee it, but goes wrong with this, there could be real anger amongst communities. So we don't know what's going to happen. So as well as part of the idea of coming back to a center of awareness, being with life as it is, being with the experience, being able to respond and flow, recognizing that change is inevitable. And so we should be always looking with awareness how we can better position ourselves, whether that's investing our time in good activities, good forums like this, the right people coming together, good networks, good associations, learning new skills, and these type of things. And I'll finish with I'll just indulge you with an analogy which I pulled together. So something which I liked to do but was very bad at was surfing. I used to drink more seawater than I did actually stay on a surfboard, but there was times when it was really, really good. But when I talk about flexibility and positioning, this is a great sport, I think, to illustrate this. And for those who've never surfed before, I'll give you some idea of what's happening here and why I think this is relevant. So you can see here, if you see my cursor, there's a man. He's taken off right at the top of the wave, and he is a happy man. He is cruising down here. He's got a clear line of sight, and he'll have a time of his life. So he's done good. This man here is in a very good position, because what you have with a wave is you have the middle, which will crash the hardest, and you don't really want to be there. How the waves will curve is, as you can see here, he's directed to go over the edge. So even as this wave is coming, he's positioned well. He can paddle and he can clear it. He's not in any trouble or any danger at all. He's going to make it over. No problem. Now, if you weren't paying so much attention and you were positioned further inside, this is a bit more dangerous. You're probably not going to make it over. You might have to duck underneath the wave, and then that's still going to potentially cause you quite a bit of trouble. Then where you really don't want to be is in the middle here, because this already looks, from what I can see here, a really shallow reef. This is a lot of water. And when that falls on someone's head, it'll push them down for a long time and probably smash them across the reef like a cheese grater. They won't be in a good shape. So like this in our life, through awareness, we can be better positioned with who we are, where we want to be in life, to foresee the challenges which are coming. And what you also have to be thinking about as well within surfing when it comes to positioning is not just addressing the immediate wave that's coming towards us. So where are we in relation to this is important, but you also then have to be thinking what's coming next. And you can already see there something is brewing in the top right of the picture. So life as it's coming now with COVID, first we talk about waves with COVID, they're coming, but we also don't know what's coming next. So by positioning well in the sense being connecting with ourselves, making sure our expectations are in check, that we are aligned with our experiences as they are day to day, we start to position ourselves in a way where we're really centered, so that anything which comes in the future, we can handle. We're in a good place, a good position. So look ahead, position well, and be a wave rider. That was the message. Okay. Thank you for having me here again and the opportunity to speak to you all, such distinguished guests. And if anyone would like to stay in contact, that's our email address, and my number will be in the group too.